Okay, for today's assignment, it is again on the law of conservation of mass. States that mass, matter, cannot be created nor destroyed during a chemical reaction. They can only change form. Both the reactants and the product should contain the same number of atoms of each element. They only rearrange during the chemical reaction. So you're going to count the atoms on the reactant side of the equation and on the product side of the equation. Based on the atom count, decide whether it is following the law of conservation of mass by circling yes or no. So we're going to do the first one together. Remember that when you have a coefficient, that coefficient gets multiplied by everything behind it. Now remember, this coefficient only applies to that h because there's a plus sign that separates the two. So when I have 2 times 2, that hydrogen has 4. This oxygen has its own coefficient. There's an understood 1 there, so 2 times 1 is 2. So I have 4 hydrogen and 2 oxygen on the reactant side. Remember, this is your reactants, and these are your products. On this side, you have this 2 goes to everything behind it, so it goes to that hydrogen and that oxygen. You multiply both. The hydrogen has a coefficient, a subscript of 2, so 2 times 2 is 4. And the oxygen has an understood 1 subscript, so 2 times 1 is 2. Do I have 4 hydrogens on both sides? Yes, I do. Do I have 2 oxygens on both sides? Yes, I do. So it, yes, follows the law of conservation of mass. So you'll do the same for the front, all the way down. On the back, what you will do now, remember, the number of molecules tells you, the coefficient tells you the number of molecules. So in this one, the number of molecules is 2 because there is a coefficient of 2. The number of elements, remember, a capital letter indicates a new element. Remember that if it's an I on the periodic table, it will look like that. So that is not an I, that's an L. So that's H and then Cl. So on this one, it has 2 elements. And now we have to find the number of atoms. So since I have a coefficient, you multiply it by everything behind it. So that leaves 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I have a total of 8 atoms. Because again, after I multiply them, I then add the 2 numbers together. At the very bottom, you will use the photosynthesis formula to answer questions 12 through 17. So remember, we list out our elements. You have a C, an H, and an O. On your reactant side, you have a C, an H, and an O on your product side. So now, you remember what to do with your coefficients and your subscript. If there's not a subscript, it is understood to be 1. Once you finish, turn it into the red basket.